Man, what up though, everyone? It's been a minute since I've been here. I'm laughing because it's been probably about, let's see, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. It's Tuesday morning, Tuesday the 15th, and I'm just now recording this episode, reviewing the last UFC pay-per-view, UFC 256. So it's been nearly 3 days, and I am still excited about how good that pay-per-view was. This was the best pay-per-view of the year. I don't even think there's anything close. Every single fight on the card was good. Many fights had spectacular knockouts. Many fights had interesting storylines that were kind of like that converged. You had older fighters that are looking like they might be on their way out. You had a celebrated fighter who looked like he might be on the decline. Just a couple of fighters that made marks for themselves as far as like these might be the next up and coming guys. I mean, so much going on in there. I'm only going to talk about it briefly. I'll go more in depth on the podcast, which I know I keep referencing the podcast. I haven't put one out yet, but that's something that I figure I'm probably going to start recording tomorrow. I have a few videos I want to record. I have more episodes of The Expanse that I want to watch before I do start doing videos about The Expanse. So I have a few things I want to do on YouTube first before I start getting the podcast back going again. But I will talk about this more in depth on the podcast. But right now, I just want to go over to briefly. So Fight Pass prelims, early prelims. I don't know what they're called anymore since the UFC migrated to ESPN this year. But sorry about that. Early prelims, Chase Hooper. So Chase Hooper is really young. I think he's like the youngest guy in the UFC, actually. Dude has remarkable wrestling and grappling and horrific striking. He came out looking like a 6-year-old girl on the feet trying to fight a 20-year-old man. But once it went to the ground, he started to look good. He got his opponent on the ground late in the first round, and I think that gave him a little bit of confidence. He was able to get a submission in the third. So for someone who looked that bad on the feet, he was still able to get a win. Chase Hooper, I think he's 2-1 in the UFC now. And so much potential, but so much work needs to be done there. But he's a fun kid to watch. He seems, he's very likable. Like I like the guy. So I like Chase Hooper. I'll continue to watch his fights, but man, he needs to work on his striking big time. Another good fight on there, Fiziev versus Moicano. This was on the prelims as well. Fiziev, man, heavy hitter, man. Dude looks like one of those short guys that is like really powerful. Like he has like maybe like a solid base, and you just know that he can hit hard. That's Fiziev, and man, he landed a beautiful combination to finish this fight. Like a left to the body, right to the head, left to the head. Dude was done. All 3 shots landed super clean, super hard. Fiziev looked great. Awesome knockout there. You had Cub Swanson, OG Cub Swanson, been around for a long time. Had some disappointing losses leading into this fight, but he doesn't fight often. He's getting up there in age. He probably won't be around too much longer. But Cub Swanson had a beautiful knockout too, man. Like was it over Pineda, Daniel Pineda? Just a beautiful, it was like another great combination. It was like uppercut, right hook, left hook, something like that. Like really, actually, I don't even think there was a left. It was just the uppercut and a right, and he was done. Really nice finish from Cub Swanson. I'm gonna look at my notes real quick. I didn't take too many notes because this was such a good event. I knew that like I wouldn't need notes to remember what happened. I would just need like who fought who. Okay, now I remember what happened in that fight. So. More prelim fight, Tisha Torres. She fought someone named Sam Knight. I'm assuming this is short for Samantha, but maybe it's not. But anyway, they're both women. Tisha Torres beat the shit out of this poor girl. She had like blood pooling in like her eyeball, and she stopped the fight for the eye injury. I don't know how serious the eye injury was, but she kind of seemed like she didn't really want to be there, if I'm being perfectly honest. And I'm not really trying to say that she, faked an eye injury. Like, I mean, you could see the blood in her eye, but you could tell she was kind of like, seemed like she was trying to decide whether or not she wanted to resume the fight or not. But to me, it kind of looked like she just didn't really want to be there. She was getting her ass kicked, and it kind of seemed like she just wanted to bail. So I don't know what's going to happen with Sam Knight, but Tisha Torres did her thing, complete and utter ass whooping from Tisha Torres. I don't know if there was anything else on the prelims. Let's see. We had the Tisha Torres fight. Oh, Gavin Tucker had a unanimous decision over Billy Quarantillo, which is surprising. Quarantillo had been on like an 8-fight win streak coming in, been looking really good in his last few fights. And Quarantillo got pieced up, man. Like there was no point in this fight where Quarantillo looked like he had a chance to win. I think it was 30-27 unanimous across the board, with Tucker winning all 3 rounds. Really good fight. I spent being the folks I was watching it with, spent a lot of time looking at Gavin Tucker's shitty tattoos, but but good performance though. Good fight. One of the few fights that went the distance, but every fight that went the distance paid off. Moving to the main card, we had, let's see, Cyril Gane versus JDS, Junior Dos Santos. Another brutal knockout. And when I opened up this episode, or I don't know, what do you call YouTube videos? Are they called episodes? I don't know. When I started this video, I mentioned about old guys kind of like seeing their way out. And JDS, man, he might be one of them. He's had a lot of pretty disappointing losses. And this was nasty. Cyril Gane is a big dude, like big, man. You could tell like this guy could fucking punch a tree down, man. Like big dude. And he I think the most brutal knockouts to me sometimes are the ones where the person who's doing the knockout kind of braces their opponent for the ass whooping. And I mentioned last week when I talked about the slam that did the knockout, how he braced his forearm across dude's neck, and then when they came down, there's like no room for like the mat to kind of like, there's a scientific word for it, but like the mat absorbing some of that punishment and pushing it back, and then like you kind of like bounce up off the mat with that guy's arm on you like that. His full body's pressing down on you. When you hit that mat, you're not bouncing up. That's just like bam, and that's it. And Gane kind of almost like held JDS's face. Like, I'm gonna try to put my hand up here, like held his face, and then came across with like a elbow like across his, oh man, it was nasty. So very humbling loss, I would say, for JDS. His time's got to be coming to an end. That's my work computer, by the way, guys. My email's open, so emails coming in, it's making noise, but I'm not going to bother stopping it now because we're almost done here. But if I was starting this off, I probably would have turned the sound off on it or whatever. But anyway, JDS, pretty rough defeat. After that, you had another veteran who's been around a while, 41-year-old Ray Souza getting pieced up by Kevin Holland. I had a good moment when we were watching that fight. Kevin Holland was on his back, and he kind of like leaned back a little bit and flicked his leg out to kind of like give himself the momentum to like pop up. And as he's popping up, he punches Jacare across the face, and the punch landed clean. Jacare was clearly hurt by it. Holland got up, finished him off with another couple of shots, and that was that. And the announcers were wild, like, man, you know, how often do you see a guy get knocked out or do a knockout from his back? And during the pay-per-view, I was like, I remember Nico Price did that. And then they interviewed Kevin Holland after the fight, and Joe Rogan's asked him about, you know, getting a knockout from his back, and he's like, "Oh, Nico Price did that," and I'm like, "Yeah, check out the big brain on Brad. You a smart motherfucker. That's right." So that was a good moment for me. But that another great fight from Kevin Holland. He's 5-0 this year. He asked to fight Khamzat Chimaev on this Saturday's card, which hey, it's Tuesday and they haven't added it, so I doubt they will. But that would have been a good fight to have on there. But 6-0 for Kevin Holland would have been something else. That 5-0 for Kevin Holland is, and all 5 of these fights are since May. So essentially, that's 5 fights over 7 months. Like that's fucking impressive, man. And Kevin Holland would be the fighter of the year if it wasn't for our main event fighter. I'm moving on. Mckenzie Dern versus Janderoba. I forget her first name, but I never forget her face because she looks like Bruno Mars to me. But another great fight. Very close fight, very close contested. Almost everyone I was watching with thought Janderoba won the fight. Mckenzie Dern won it unanimously. I think it was 29-28 though, like not a 30-27, but Mckenzie Dern won it unanimously. She's improved dramatically. She's looked really good since she's come back after having a baby. So great night for Mckenzie Dern. She's working her way up the ranking. So she had a great fight. And then our last two fights, we had our co-main, Charles Oliveira and Tony Ferguson. Man, disappointing to see Tony. I don't want to say go out like that because I do not believe this is gonna be Tony Ferguson's last fight or anything like that. But after how badly he got hurt in the Justin Gaethje fight, there was a lot of concern, even for me, because I like Tony Ferguson, concern over whether or not he could return it and if he'd be the same Tony Ferguson. And for him to be dominated the manner that he was by Charles Oliveira is disappointing. I don't know what's next for Tony. Everything about Tony's very unorthodox. His training style, his lack of a quote-unquote team in the traditional sense, a coach, I should say. Tony does everything differently, and he found a great deal of success that way. But Tony also gets beat the fuck up a lot in his fights, and he wins. He had the 12-fight win streak before the Gaethje fight. Tony wins his fights, but man, he takes so much damage, and it's got to take a lot out of a guy. And the Gaethje fight was probably the most damage I've seen him take. He took a lot of damage when he fought Anthony Pettis, but we're talking 3 rounds, I believe that was, because that was on the McGregor Khabib card. Tony got beat up in that fight. Tony got beat up even worse in the Gaethje fight, and now Oliveira just ragdolled him, man. Like, he couldn't do shit. It was 15 minutes of Oliveira doing whatever the fuck he wanted to do. So, disappointed for Tony, but happy to see another guy in the lightweight division make a claim as the next guy up. So now when we talk about these next guys that could be fighting for this potentially vacant belt, whether Khabib leaves or whether Khabib comes back, but like working on the assumption that Khabib stays retired, we got McGregor and Poirier fighting next month. You got Justin Gaethje still floating around out there. You got Michael Chandler floating around up there, and now you gotta add Charles Oliveira into the conversation. So I expect Oliveira to fight someone like maybe like a Dan Hooker, or maybe Oliveira just fights the winner of the McGregor-Poirier fight. Actually, I think that's probably actually the best idea. Let's say, for instance, nothing changes between now and January 23rd, and that fight remains to be for no belt, and Khabib is still champion. I say if Khabib remains retired, Conor Poirier winner fights Oliveira for interim belt. If Khabib doesn't remain retired, then winner of Conor Dustin. Khabib comes back. Yes, if Khabib comes back, Khabib's probably going to fight somebody entirely different anyway, and then walk away. So I don't think I don't think anyone's going to end up fighting Khabib whether he comes back or not. But lots of interesting stuff happening at 155. So really looking forward to that. And last but not least, the main event: Deiveson Figueiredo versus Brandon Moreno. I would say I need to watch the Fight of the Year contenders again. Right now, Fight of the Year contenders are Weili versus Joanna from I believe that might have been January, and Hooker versus Poirier, and this fight between Figueiredo and Moreno. I need to watch all 3 again, but I think it says enough to say that I'm putting this in the Fight of the Year contention. There are many people who are calling it the Fight of the Year over those other 2. Many, and I would agree with them, are calling this the best fight in flyweight history. And yeah, it was something else, man. It was a pleasure to watch that fucking battle, man. A little bit of controversy in the 3rd round. Moreno took both an eye poke and a groin kick. And the bad part about the groin kick was he was like dry heaving on the mat, like you think he's about to throw up, and she's like coughing and shit. And apparently, so to kind of rewind a bit about groin strikes, you see them probably at every event. And generally you can get away with 1, 2, sometimes 3 with nothing happening but a warning. And then in this fight, after the groin kick, Figueiredo was instantly deducted 1 point. And there was a little bit of controversy there, like, okay, wait, we're deducting on the first one now? But the rule technically states that whether or not a point is deducted relies upon how the action could potentially affect the remainder of the fight. So if you have a standard groin kick and the guy's just like, all right, let me walk back and forth for 30 seconds and then I'll get started back up again, different story. If you got a guy sound like he's about to throw up, then you got to figure like this is going to affect the rest of this fight. So Jason Herzog deducted a point for Figueiredo. And then ultimately that is how we ended up with the fight being a draw, majority draw. You had two cards were a draw. One card had the fight for Figueiredo despite the point deduction. So if the point deduction hadn't happened in the third round, which ended up being 9-9, I believe, on all the scorecards, Figueiredo wins that round, wins the fight unanimously. But since it's a draw, he retains the championship, and they are probably going to be fighting again very soon. So great fight, great pay-per-view. Top to bottom, every fight was good. Stories left and right, all kinds of potential for future fights and the future of each fighter's division going forward. So, man, if you can find this pay-per-view, watch it. It was a good one. So, this week is the last UFC event of 2020, December 19th. It's a stacked fucking card. It lost its main event, and it's still a stacked fucking card. So, and that will be my last fight talk for 2020. I believe the UFC will be back January, I want to say the 13th is when they come back. It might be the 6th, but I think it's the 13th. So I'll be back. Oh, there's also a Canelo Alvarez fights this weekend. Anthony Joshua fought this past weekend. This was a great day for fights. You had Anthony Johnson. That's where Anthony Joshua. I said Anthony Johnson twice. And I'll talk about Anthony Johnson on the podcast, by the way. But Anthony Joshua fought earlier that day. Pretty good fight, standard fare, beat the shit out of Pulev. Like but man, he had a chin, this guy, man. Would not go down, taking brutal shots, just and laughing, talking back to him and shit. Crazy fight. Shakur Stevenson fought after that. I missed the majority of that. As soon as the UFC was over, I went to that fight, and it was in the last round. So, but Shakur Stevenson fought that day. Like, lots of good fights were last weekend. And then this weekend, like I said, the final UFC event. And then we have a Canelo Alvarez fight that night too. So I'll be back to talk about those next week. Until then, peace.